Welcome back, listeners. I'm Robin Black, and this is It's All About Healing podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Kim Nugent. She is a prison mentorship facilitator, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her and what she does on this journey. Thank you so much, Kim. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for the invitation. I'm excited about this.
No problem at all. So, tell us a little bit about your career path.
So I was very fortunate early on. Knew I ended up in the hospitality industry. I was working for a little restaurant, and then that became my love. So I went to school and got a degree in hotel and restaurant management and spent over 20 years in the hospitality industry. So how I might describe myself in everything that I do is really servant leadership, which then led me, I really, though, in college, I had a teacher that was phenomenal, and he made teaching look so easy. I found out it wasn't, but in the meantime, I knew that I wanted to teach something I knew something about, needed the experience. So I went back to school, earned my doctorate, and then ended up wanting to be a faculty member at the college level, which I did. And then because I had administrative experience, I ended up becoming after a teacher, then a dean, and so on and so forth, and ultimately became a university president. And whether it was in the hospitality industry or higher education, I really believe in second chances. People make mistakes, and I had written a few books already in the leadership space and mentorship, and I just a fellow author asked me if I would write a book on mentorship in prisons. And Robin, I said yes. I didn't know him. He really just had been doing some volunteer work, and he thought it would be a really interesting perspective. And I said yes, then hung up the phone and said, oh my gosh, what did I say yes to? But it felt right. I don't know if you've had those moments when you say yes to something and you're not sure how it's going to happen. But then I also knew I don't write about things I don't know. So I spent about 4 years heavily researching every part of the corrections industry, all kinds of programs. And then at that point, wrote my first book around this, and it's called From Prison to Possibilities Paving Your Path.
Yes. Okay. Wow, that's a lot. So, and with your program, I know before this you stated that it was a 6 to 9 month program. Tell us, can you get in a little bit more detail about that program?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I know, I'm also a coach, and one of the things I know is when you're working with clients, you're working with a whole person.
Hmm.
You're not working with just one thing. So the approach of the book is actually the first week is really about them getting connected. The second week is really about focusing on character strength for strengths we talk about for people who are serving time. His forgiveness, and that's a very deep conversation. Then after that, we go A to Z. So A is for attitude, B is for behavior, C is for communication, D decision making, and so on. So it's a structured program because most mentorship programs fall apart because there's no structure. So
Right.
they read about a page and a half to kind of tee them up, if you will, and then the mentees actually complete questions prior to coming to their weekly meeting. Then the mentors have a set of questions, similar but different, and then they lead a small group discussion over, again, I say 6 to 9 months. It's really a 6.5 month program, except that there are lockdowns. So the reality is it doesn't flow like it's on the paper, right? And so at the very end of that, the most exciting thing for me is when we start in the ending, and that we have a formal graduation. They receive certificates. The mentees and mentors, several of them have a part in the program, and then they really talk about the impact of having a mentor or something that happened during this time together. And then when we finish, the mentors, if they still have time, and many of them have life sentences, just so you know,
Oh, okay.
then if they want to continue to be a part of the program, I teach them advanced coaching skills. They're not a certified coach, but I want to take and then elevate their skill set. They've
Right.
learned so much. And then what they do is they actually help the administration continue with that next cohort. So the mentors, I stay and I train the mentees to be mentors, the
Hmm.
mentors to be coaches, and that we do rinse and repeat. And so the real model for me is when you have lived experience or shared experience and it's a mentorship program, you're more likely to get better results than, someone coming in off the street who has not walked this path. The
Right.
other thing that we do is by the time I get to come back to the prison facility, or usually around the fourth time, could be earlier, sometimes the third time, there will be a person who just sort of has found his purpose in a new and completely different way and is so intrigued with the material and the topic. And usually I will ask them, would you like to co-facilitate with me?
Mhm.
And they'll say yes. And so we do that for that next group. And then finally, I'll say, would you like to be me? You can take this program and teach it inside this facility. They can also take the program if they leave outside the facility. They're welcome to do that as well. So for me, I want to be able to, it's their program.
Yeah.
Yes, I wrote the book, but honestly, the way it works is because it is their program and they own it. And
Mhm.
we definitely hold them to higher standards. And the thing I'm most proud of, probably more than anything else, because they really take it that seriously, the they have been able to reduce rule violations dramatically in all the facilities I'm in. And that's very important to me because it's safer for the staff and safer for the residents. And so you talk about shifting a culture, that is definitely happening.
Okay. And then so you said some of these mentors and mentees are actually serving life sentences. So
Mhm.
what do they have to do to actually qualify for this program, or how exactly do they go about gaining access?
That's a very good question. So, I'm sure that if you look back in your past and you think about, hey, I knew this when I started my podcast. But if you look now, you've learned a lot of things along the way that maybe you didn't know when you first started. Well, that's the way I feel about working inside prisons. So, in the beginning, the very time I go into a prison, the warden will actually select the first group because I don't know anybody. And originally, we did have criteria that's very different
Mhm.
now than it was then. So my thinking, it was wrong, but my thinking was that we would have someone who only had 9 months to 2 years left on their sentence. And then they had to have a good conduct record. And then we did have a couple of crimes that they might not be eligible for in the beginning.
Okay. Okay.
After that second, after the first graduation, we said, no way.
Mhm.
It's open to anyone. If you have the desire to be a part of the program, we will take you. I don't care if it's maximum security, minimum security, moderate security. Don't care if you have, I mean, I do care you need to be there at least 6 months. But after that, you can have a life sentence and you are definitely eligible. And this last class month ago in Mississippi, it was 75 people graduated and 30% were maximum security residents, which it was so exciting to me because programming is typically not available for
Mhm.
people who have that kind of sentence. And so
Right.
if you really want real change inside a facility, let's open up these programs to anyone who would like to be able to transform their life.
I really love that. So it's kind of like, I feel like, because you know how you said that they find God when they're actually, doing their sentence as well, serving their sentence. But I feel that it also they gain purpose, right, and
Mhm.
meaning to be able to help others. And when the mentees become the mentor, who exactly are they mentoring, and are they mentoring while they're still inside?
Yes, always inside. My program doesn't go outside. There are so
Okay.
many fantastic organizations, nonprofits around the United States that really help do that. So
Mhm.
my work is inside, but I want to say a couple of things that you said. The first thing is that these men, regardless whether they're mentee, mentor, whatever, they do find their purpose. And to me, that's exciting because that's a reason to get out of bed. And I
Yeah.
don't care what your crime is, when you have the opportunity to make a difference with somebody else, that's a healing all into yourself. When you can pour into somebody else, you stop thinking about yourself so much. And now the world looks very different.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. The other part of that about the curriculum is that, when I think about people, and I learned this from college students, honestly, I learned it from training and development in the hospitality industry, is whenever we're training somebody, we're not just training a task or a behavior.
Mhm.
We're training a whole person.
Yeah.
And so the program really focuses a lot on soft skills, then employability skills and career development, and then a very robust, very practical set of a post release plan that they need to develop for themselves, the documentation they're going to need. And then what I did this last time, this is the third edition of this book. And what I realized in the last couple of years working with the gentleman is that to me, while they're inside is the time it's dress rehearsal for real life. And
Mhm.
so not waiting until you leave to get reunited with your family or your children, that work can start now. So at the very back end of the book, I give them a set of 52 questions to talk differently with their partner who's probably still with the children. Then I give a set of 52 questions to talk to your children, because it's got to
Mhm.
be hard, if your parent is incarcerated. And
Right.
then your family, how do you explain that? Because they have feelings around all of that as well. And so how do I want them to, I know what happens. It's not a want to. What actually happens in the beginning is sometimes those conversations, or maybe when they call home, is more self-centered. I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
And then what shifts in the program is they start inquiring about, how are you doing? How are the children doing? How can I support you? Even though I'm on the inside, let me help you work through some challenges. And that starts to shift families.
Yeah. Man, so in this whole process, they're actually healing as well,
Yes.
and they're kind of healing themselves in a sense, right? It's like this program really helps them heal all around.
Yes. And I'm so glad you said something a few minutes ago, which is, in terms of, I do believe that when real healing starts, there has to be some kind of transformation, some kind of spiritual transformation, first and foremost, if it's
Mhm.
going to stick.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. But there is a spiritual foundation in my book
Hmm.
throughout. And I, I think you and your audience might appreciate this, but when I wrote the first edition, when I was ready to start to write, and I finished the book, Robin, I looked at that book and I said, where did that come from? I have no real memory. I mean, of writing the book. I have a hard copy of this book. Yes. What I meant was that was a God thing.
Yeah.
And I've written a lot of books, but I've never had that experience before.
Oh my goodness, that gave me chills. And Dr. Nugent, so how long have you been doing this so far?
5 years.
5 years. And you wrote your book 5 years ago as well?
So I wrote the first one 5 years ago, and then I've
Okay.
had two more editions. So the latest edition is the third edition. It's still called the same thing. I just don't, we don't offer first and second edition anymore. And the reason I did it this way is because every time I learn something, I want to give them the latest and greatest information.
Mhm.
So, and as I listen to them, I'm really listening carefully about what do they need now in this moment. And so that's why it's important to me to keep this material fresh, particularly for people who are serving a life sentence. They're going to get tired of reading the same thing over and over again. And so this book is all new. And I told them everything, the A to Z structure is still the same. All the content is new. The way it's structured is new. And that's exciting for me. And I think it was exciting. Also, in this book in particular, I've been handing out evaluations for every program I've been in. And I held on to the paper copies, right? And so, I didn't really know what I was going to do with that information. But in this book, I have a chapter that's really, advice from the mentors and what the impact was for them personally. And then throughout, I have half of the letters have scripture, and the
Mhm.
other half are actually the letter that, or the topic that impacted that particular mentor the most. And I have their names next to it. So when I went back this last time and gave them the new copies of the book, they were so excited to see their name in the book. And I was excited too, because that means everything to me.
And you said you gave them evaluations. So what exactly were they evaluating?
Really the program. So, I
Okay.
asked them, have you ever had a mentor? What was the impact of having a mentor if it was a mentee? What letter in the book in particular was the one that really had the biggest impact in your life, and why? And if you were going to give advice to somebody specifically about this program, what would it be?
Mhm.
And really how's it changed you? I mean, very simple questions, but very impactful questions to me.
Right. And so with this program, how exactly does that help the hopelessness inside, where that translate into violence, right?
Mhm.
Exactly. How do they cope with that?
So, I mean, every prison, no matter how great the staff is and how great the programming is and everything else, it's difficult.
Hmm.
You know, um, when I think about Robin, the very first time I went into a prison just to take the tour, not to teach or anything, the thing that, that's hard is, the noise,
Hmm.
the number of people, the lighting. I mean, there're just so many things that are just basic things that you would never think about. And then really when you walk through that first door, once you're inside and that gate hits the
Hmm.
wall, that's a sound I will never get out of my head.
Yeah.
And that's when you know for sure, even the strongest guys, they know my life just changed right now
Hmm.
and not in a good way.
Yeah.
And so, but the program does give hope. So originally, I'm going to talk about two specific prisons, but they had programs. They had like a GED program and they had a couple of other programs, but the sign up rate was very low. And that
Hmm.
they weren't committed to that outcome, obviously, but that was just the reality. Because when we went in Prison of Possibilities, it's a new program, people don't know and all of that. After they got that, they wanted more, which made
Hmm.
me happy. So they started filling up the GED classes, the anger management classes, and any other class that they had
Hmm.
available. And that's what I want because, yes, it's very easy to be hopeless in a prison.
Yeah.
What I find instead though is that they want to learn, they want to do better, and when they know better, they do better every single time. I think what's refreshing for them, only because they've told me, is that, there's plenty of volunteers that go into prisons and whether it's Kairos ministry, Mike Barber ministry, Bridges to Life, whatever, the prison entrepreneurship tons of prisons out, I mean tons of programs out there. But when you see somebody from the outside giving up their personal time to come in and pour into you,
Hmm.
and one of the things I always say is you are not forgotten.
Yeah.
There are people thinking about you. And
Hmm.
that I think they need to hear that often. And they need to know that you're going to continue to show up because they're so used to being disappointed in their life that it's really important that you keep your word with them.
I like that. Thank you for that. And so, as far as the violence, has
Mhm.
this program, like, so far, has it shown tremendous, like, okay, this is definitely working, or
Yes.
okay, okay. And then
Yes.
so they'll be able to do this at home with their families and or not, I can't say at home. My apologies. But when they're speaking to their families and when their families come to visit, they're able to kind of shed this light on them and kind of go over what they're learning in this program as well.
Yes, and actually, funny you said that because what happens is, it's generally, we don't get into A for attitude until week 3,
Hmm.
and so as they're learning, then when they call home, then they tell them about, hey, I'm in this class or whatever.
Hmm.
Actually, I will say even more than that. So I'll tell you where it starts. It starts in week 3 because attitude. Their homework for that class is they have to interview 5 people about their attitude. I use a lot
Yeah.
of coaching techniques. So, and I always say, you can use, it could be the chaplain, it could be a teacher, it could be one of the correctional officers, it could be the warden, don't really care. But I say, if you're really brave, you'll call home and
Hmm.
ask them about your attitude, and they will not hold anything back.
Yeah.
And I say, the only thing you're supposed to say when they tell you whatever it is, you say thank you.
Hmm.
And that will be surprising to them. They're probably going to think, "Hey, we're going to argue if I tell you the truth." Nope, you say thank you, you record that, and you come back to class and you tell us how it went.
I love that. I love
Mhm.
that so much. And where exactly are you located?
I'm in Houston, Texas. I do a lot of work in Mississippi. I've done work in
Okay.
Florida and a couple of state jails in Texas, but my focus right now is really Mississippi.
Okay. And is that eventually going to expand?
That is the goal.
Oh my goodness.
That is the
That
goal.
is just wow. That is I love that because it's you're bringing hope to so many people and that's just amazing, especially for those who are serving life sentences. Now,
Yeah.
is there a lot of people serving life sentences?
Yeah.
Wow.
It more than it should be, honestly. It's just,
Okay.
that's a whole different topic. But I want to go back to something else. So after I do the 2.5 day of training, I'm training the residents directly. We
Mhm.
and I take nothing for granted. Having been a teacher, I
Yeah.
want them to feel very confident when they make the commitment at the end of this to be able to say, yes, I want to be a mentor. So we do readings, self-reflection, conversation. They do role playing, they do one-on-one role playing, then they do pair shares, and then we do small group. And
Mhm.
then I switch up the groups because they may not know who's going to be in their group, and that person or persons will be different age, background, ethnicity, definitely different way of thinking. And so they've got to manage all of that inside their small group weekly meetings. And that is really challenging, because they're working on not being triggered by anything or, trying to say too much. So they learn really good coaching skills, how to ask questions instead of talking all the time. And that's been really powerful to see how much they have changed and how much they have grown.
And how much time is allotted for you to spend with them?
I get 2.5 days. I could, that we can do, I can set them up for 6 weeks and feeling comfortable. Now, I do not leave them. So let me say it differently. So that's the first thing that happens. My commitment is I call the facility back every single week. We have a set call, and then I talk to, it could be the principal, the programming warden, it could be the chaplain, it could be all three of them. And it also could be one of the lead mentors, if you will, sits in, and then I will ask, where are you? How did you tee up this week? How are you going to introduce the topic this week? Just to make sure. There are some more difficult topics in there. And a lot of times the facility may actually have someone on staff that can help to be able to help. You have extra support. So for example, when we get into F for finance, I don't know their background, right? So they may know something about finance, they may not know anything, but there's probably a GED teacher who's teaching math and or something that can step in, and if they need some assistance about how to develop a budget, or if they have more advanced questions, something like that. A lot of prisons also, we get into P for PTSD. PTSD a professional actually a part of that conversation to help get a question that they can't answer. So again, the prisons additional. I also, like I just say, I'm calling every week for they need additional resources. They don't have these. So a lot of times I can do the research for them to send it back to the programming warden to.
Okay. And so when you're actually going to the prison, how much time is allotted when you're going there?
I get 2.5 days.
For that day, like, so they're actually
out of you mean real day? 8 hours. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's that's what I was wondering. Okay, so
yes, start at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. We end at 5. They have lunch, and they have to stay for count day, and then the third day is about a half a day. What we, that I always tell them at the beginning, "You're happy you're here," and I take that for this program. You don't. So we're going to go through this, but at the end, just commit. Either way, it's fine. If it's a yes, great. I'm going to say the warden will be in here, and you'll shake his or her hand and you'll say, yes, I want to do this. I'm making that commitment. If you're a no, that's fine. We part friends. And the reason is I can't have you be a maybe is I cannot have these men disappointed.
And
for 3 weeks or whatever, and say,
okay, I think your connection's messing up just a little bit. Can you hear me, Dr. Nugent?
I can hear you.
Can you still hear me? Oh, okay. And so this program, is it co-ed? Is it co-ed, or is it men only or women only, or?
Well, most prison facilities are only men or only women. 93% of the people in prison today are men. So this program works for either men or women.
I meant
it works for men or women.
I understand that. I mean, for your program, do you do both men and women, or are you just focusing only on mentoring men?
It's a good question. I actually started out with women first, but the need is so much greater for men. That's where the focus has become. Okay. But yes, it works for men or women. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay, well, thank you. Wow, that is phenomenal, and I really do feel that that's going to help a lot of people, and I really do hope that that's able to expand. If there was anything that you could add, what is the number one piece of advice that you would give to families of, people who are incarcerated or anything of that nature?
I think, well, let me just, I don't know if you know the numbers, but 50% of all families in the United States have a family member or friend incarcerated or has been. Those are
Mhm.
big numbers. But what I would say is that anybody can get involved, and you don't even have to go to a prison to do that. If people wrote to their senator, congressperson, or their local representative to just advocate for programming, because 50% of the programs in the U.S. do not have any programming, that would be the first step. If your audience is an employer, could they consider being a second chance employer? We just need more. There's a labor shortage. You have really good, hardworking people. They just want a shot when they get out. We make it so hard for them. And then the last thing I would say is churches, believe it or not. I really feel strongly that churches, if I had a magic wand, that they would open up their doors and be more welcoming to people who have records and have get connected groups. Every church calls it something different, but where you could have small group where they feel like they have a true family.
Mhm.
That would be amazing.
Thank you. And well, does anyone have access to your book, or is it only
Mhm.
available in certain
Yeah.
areas? Okay.
Amazon has it.
Awesome. Okay. So I just wanted to double check. So I will definitely go ahead and link that in the show notes below as well. And again, one more time, what was the name of that book?
From Prison to Possibilities, Paving Your Path.
Thank you again so much for coming on. It has been such an enjoyment just hearing all of this, and it's extremely informative. So I do thank you for that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. And again, I'm Robin Black. This is It's All About Healing podcast. Everyone, stay blessed.